January 8th, 1995. It's a sleepy Sunday night at the Lair Lounge on the west side of Colorado Springs.
There was a jukebox, and it was in use frequently. It was rock and roll, so it was loud.
Do anything else?
I'm good.
I gotta take trash now. I'll be back.
A faint sound grabs the bartender's attention.
She heard what she thought to be moaning coming from the area of the back door.
Across town, Lt.Joe Kenda is spending his Sunday night honing his firearm skills.
I carry a version of a 1911 A1 .45 automatic built by Kimber of Yonkers, New York. I consider it to be the most accurate weapon I've ever fired.
But a page from dispatch tells Kenda that target practice is over. He's needed ASAP on the city's west side. The Lair Lounge is lit up like its last call, and so is the parking lot.
How you doing, Lieutenant?
How you doing? Who's the responding officer?
The officer with the coffee right there.
All right, thank you.
My habit is to speak to the first officer on the scene. He usually has the cleanest view and gets the greatest statements from anyone.
How you doing, sir?
Good, how you doing?
Pretty good.
You were the first on the scene?
Yes, sir. When I got here, there were two females over there. Proceeded that car.
Once medical arrived on scene, they determined right away that the passenger was still alive and breathing.
They transported the passenger to the hospital, but she died. The driver they pronounced dead at the scene.
The driver is one 29-year-old Michelle Vigil. She leaves behind a husband and two young sons.
Michelle was a good person, a kind person, a free spirit. Whatever happened in her life, Mickey had a mind of her own, and she always had such a quick wit.
I adored her. I thought, I just loved her bubbly personality, always smiling, You could be having a bad day, she could walk in the room smiling, and, you start feeling that way.
How were the two young women killed? To Kenda, the answer is written all over the vehicle.
A lot of blood. When I was 20 feet away from that car, I knew it was a gunshot. You are taking a bullet that's traveling supersonic, entering into the human body, producing a mist of blood called high-velocity blood spatter. The only thing that produces it are bullets.
When we got here, the doors were closed, but EMS had to open them up so that they could take care of the victims.
Let's hope they didn't disturb too much evidence.
Michelle Vigil has been shot in the head. Reports from the hospital indicate the second victim suffered similar injuries.
Were the windows rolled down?
Yes, sir.
By the look of the wound, she was shot from the driver's side.
Police confirm Kenda's hunch. They've found two 9mm casings near Michelle's body.
The keys are still in ignition. It's apparent that they were sitting in this car as if they were either preparing to leave or that they just arrived when shots are fired.
What no one at the scene can figure out is who would target these women for such a horrific crime, and why.
We were stumped. It was such a bloody gangland-style crime in a part of town that you really wouldn't expect that. The first thing you come up with is, was it money?
Studying the vehicle, Kenda uncovers the answer to that question.
So when I'm looking at this car, I see the windows are rolled down. They're not going to have the windows down on a January night in Colorado. but they would if someone approached that car to speak to them. This is no random act. This is not an attempted robbery. The purpose is to kill one or both of these women.
Somebody was angry at these women. You gotta find out now why.
Kenda's in luck. It turns out Patrol already has a friend of the victims waiting to be questioned.
When the first officer arrived on scene, he noticed a patron from the bar walk up to the victim's car.
Shirley, you need to get back.
That's my girlfriend in there.
There's help on the way, man. Just get back, all right? Come on.
The man complied, waiting anxiously for the paramedics to arrive.
He's waiting right over there for you.
Kenda hopes the man can tell him more about the women in the car and why they might have been murdered.
Valentino?
Yeah, that's me.
Well, his name is Valentino Garcia. He knows both these girls, and they've both been murdered. He is very distraught.
The woman who died at the hospital is identified as 30-year-old Shirley Harper Swally. Divorced for several years, Shirley leaves behind 2 young daughters.
My mom was a very giving person. She always wanted the house to be full, and she always wanted fun things happening, and she always wanted laughter and things like that.
Just a very likable person. You can fall in love with her in no time. That's Shirley.
Can you tell me how you knew the victims?
Yeah, I know Shirley and Michelle.
What was your relationship with Shirley?
During the investigation, it was revealed that Valentino Garcia was kind of interested in Shirley and had wanted to date her.
In fact, Valentino says earlier that afternoon, Shirley and Michelle stopped by his house to hang out. He used the opportunity to make his move.
Shirley, I'm just wondering, maybe we can get together for some drinks sometime.
I would love that. I need to talk to Gino.
She said, well, maybe we can talk about that, but not right now. I have this boyfriend, Gino, and I've got problems with him.
She kept saying that he's controlling and possessive.
Really? Well, I like that.
You know, he's crazy. You don't know him, and I don't want anything to happen to you.
He's very jealous, and everybody's really worried about this, especially Michelle Vigil. She doesn't like this guy. She has a bad feeling about him.
Don't worry about Gino. I can handle that. I can handle him.
You're so sweet.
According to Valentino, Shirley seemed unsure of what to do, so she asked Michelle to talk things over at the Lair Lounge.
That's why I came down here to the Lair, to meet up with her and just talk to her some more.
So now we have this interesting specter, this Gino. Mysterious Gino, possessive, scary kind of guy. Murders are driven by emotion. Emotion gone wild. What if he suspects that Shirley's potential romance with Garcia is in fact current?
Oh, we're gonna do everything we can to find out who did it.
That's Gino right there.
Well, how convenient.
Kenda takes one look at Gino and gets a bad vibe.
When I saw him get out of that van, all my alert signals went off in my head. Pay attention to this guy. Get a balanced position. Make sure your weapon is clear. You unconsciously do those things. You're prepared to either fight or draw a gun, because he looks like the kind of fellow you might have to do that with. We have 2 dead women, multiple gunshot wounds in a car behind a bar. One of these women has a jealous, confrontive boyfriend, and he conveniently arrives while we're still standing at the crime scene.
That's Gino right there.
Lt.Joe Kenda and his men approach Shirley's boyfriend with extreme caution.
When Gino got out of that van, he had the look. And when I say the look, I mean a guy who I think can take care of himself, that probably has a gun.
Gino, I'm Detective Kenda.
Let's find out, where have you been for the last hour or so?
I'm just looking for somebody.
Who are you looking for?
A friend.
Gino has obviously been talked to by police in the past. He is evasive.
Listen, we had a double shooting here. Someone you know got hurt. You come pulling up out of the blue in my crime scene?
You know what all that adds up to, don't you, Gino? It adds up to one word: suspect. And that, my man, would be you. That got through to him, and he says, all right, I get it. Well, good, Gino. You have a frightening grasp of the obvious.
Where were you the last 3 hours?
I've been at a party.
The people at this party will verify you were there? Give me the names and numbers.
Here's a pad, here's a pencil.
Gino writes down the names of the individuals he claims will vouch for him. As Kenda's men head out in search, Gino explains how he ended up at the crime scene.
He said, Shirley and I were supposed to have dinner tonight, and she was supposed to page me to tell me when to meet her.
He was concerned because he didn't hear from her.
Gino tells Kenda he got worried when people at the party started talking about a shooting at the Lair Lounge.
Word travels on the streets quickly. One person makes a phone call to somebody else, he makes a phone call to 2 or 3 other people.
She's dead, isn't she?
They transported to the hospital. She didn't make it. I'm sorry.
Gino gets very emotional, very, very upset. Seemed to be pretty genuine to me. It really hit him that this girl is gone.
Meanwhile, Kenda's detectives report back that Gino's alibi checks out.
It's enough to convince me that I don't think he's the guy.
With Gino crossed off the suspect list, Kenda wonders if Shirley's ex-husband might somehow be involved.
When people become involved with each other, they're emotionally attached, they're married, they have children, and things go awry, emotions can become quite raw.
But it turns out Shirley's ex-husband, Sean Harper, lives an hour away with their 2 daughters and was at home with them at the time of the crime. Moreover, Sean is devastated by the news of Shirley's death.
Quite honestly, my very first thought was, how am I possibly going to tell my kids? At the time, Janelle was 10.
My father was sitting in the living room looking at me very intensely. The first thing that came out of my dad's mouth was, "I love you." And then he went in to tell me that some bad people had just gotten a hold of my mom and that she was gone. It was pure shock.
Explaining that to her was the hardest thing I've ever done as a parent. Bar none.
Back at the Lair Lounge, Kenda puzzles over the details of the crime.
This is not random gunfire, it's directed at their heads. Now that is a clear demonstration of intent.
Your first thought is, was somebody upset with both of them, or just one of them?
The odds are that 2 people cannot engender that kind of hatred and then be together and die for it. The odds are one is hated, and the other had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Having largely ruled out the men in Shirley Harper Swaley's life, Kenda wonders if the driver, Michelle Vigil, might have been the intended target.
I sent 2 detectives to notify Michelle's family. A perfectly normal household that suddenly struck with lightning.
Yes? I'm Detective Grant. This is Detective Freeman. Do you mind if we come in for a minute?
Sure can. What's this about?
There was a shooting this evening at the Lair Lounge. Your wife, Michelle, was killed.
She's 29 years old, and her life's been taken, and her husband is devastated by that. Absolutely devastated.
Mickey had 2 sons. I believe the older son was around 4, the younger was around 2 when they lost their mother.
I can't imagine what Ernie went through, and I can't imagine what her 2 sons went through. Can't even imagine, because to me, I think when a parent is taken away from a young child, it's got to be so very devastating.
Though Michelle's husband is shell-shocked, Detectives must question him about her life, hoping to find the motive behind her murder.
She didn't live the lifestyle that I thought would have caused this to happen to her. It just didn't seem real.
Can you tell us about the last time you saw Michelle?
I saw Michelle this morning. She was going to give her friend Shirley a ride.
He explained that Shirley's car had recently been stolen, and Michelle would give her rides and pick her up and take her places.
Michelle told Ernie that Shirley had been going through a tough time, so Michelle wanted to spend the day with her to cheer her up.
Mickey was always looking out for other people. She was a loyal friend. If you needed an ear to listen, she would be there if you had problems. She would actually listen and tell you what she thought.
That's when Ernie Veal unloads a bombshell on detectives, one that totally changes their perspective.
Yeah, well, Shirley's been having a lot of problems.
What problems specifically?
According to Michelle, she's been struggling with some cocaine addiction.
Murder cases become enormously complicated when drugs get involved. Drugs are so powerful that they literally drive people to do things they would never otherwise do. You don't pay your source. You rip off drugs from other people. You do all kinds of things to get the drug you want to use. In the process, you leave a trail of prime suspects behind you.
While pondering this development, Kenda recalls something he saw on the news. A homicide in a county just northeast of Colorado Springs. It too was drug-related.
We have a young girl shot in the head in Elbert County. 4 days later, we have 2 young women shot in the head in Colorado Springs. They are similar cases.
Could Colorado Springs PD and the Elbert County Sheriff's Office be hunting the same killer?
When this girl is discovered in Elbert County, it's a UPS truck. He's out there in the middle of the boonies making a delivery somewhere and finds the body.
I smelled something. It smelled awful. All right. So that's when I looked over there and I saw her.
The victim was 24-year-old Sherry Holmes, who was also rumored to have drug problems. And like Shirley and Michelle, Sherry Holmes met a violent death.
She had 6 gunshot wounds to the head. Somebody is very serious about making certain she is dead.
But according to detectives in Elbert County, that's not all the killer did.
She was covered in several pounds of peanut butter, smeared over her body post-mortem. That is a Mexican cartel trick. They want the body disposed of. So they spread peanut butter on the remains to attract bears, coyotes, any other animal that will come and eat this body or drag it off where it's not going to be ever discovered or found.
There is strong evidence that Sherry Holmes was taken out by someone in the drug world, possibly with connections to Mexican cartels. Is it possible that same killer is behind the double homicide at the Lair Lounge?
I've always thought there's no such thing as a coincidence. They are always suspicious. They happen more than once, they become evident.
If that's the case, then Kenda's killer is far more dangerous than anyone had realized.
We need to find this person. If he or she can do this, they can certainly do this again. At this stage of this case, we have 2 dead women, Shirley and Michelle. One of those young ladies has a drug problem. That distresses me because it widens my field of suspects.
The mystery only deepens when Lt.Joe Kenda learns that nearby Elbert County is investigating a similar shooting that happened just 4 days earlier.
The public was very concerned over 3 women dead in that close a period of time. The coincidence is just so great.
Like Shirley Harper Swally, the victim in Elbert County, Sherry Holmes, is believed to have had a drug problem. Kenda needs to find out if either woman had any enemies in the local drug world. To do so, he again calls on someone intimately familiar with Shirley's circle of friends, her boyfriend, Gino Jaquez.
Thanks again for coming back so soon. Do you know Sherry Holmes?
Is that the girl they found killed over in Elbert County?
It is.
Kinda. Shirley knew her, but I didn't really know her that well.
You know anything about her murder?
Oh, no. I just knew that she was a snitch.
How'd you know that?
Oh, just word on the street. I've heard that for weeks now.
As far as Shirley goes, is she using drugs?
Well,
listen, I'm just trying to solve a murder here.
she did have a cocaine problem.
He says that Shirley likes cocaine, that she goes on binges, and this has caused her a lot of problems.
Any enemies she might have had? Any unpaid debts?
Well, she does have a former boyfriend that was a drug dealer.
She used to live with this guy on the west side. His name is James Palachek.
Hey, missing a couple of grams. Did you take it?
Leave me alone.
Did you take it?
Yes, so what?
Look, if you take it, I need to know. And I need to get the money for it.
Leave me alone!
When Shirley left James, he claimed she owed him $2,500.
People will kill in the drug world over $20, let alone $2,500.
It's not a good idea to rip off drug dealers.
But according to Gino, James Palachek had already settled the score with Shirley.
A couple weeks ago, her car got stolen, and we all know that he set that up.
That makes you wonder, is James a good choice for this? I mean, he's been ripped off, okay, he's mad. So what's he do about it? Well, he takes something from her. Maybe in his mind it's settled it. Does that still make him a suspect? Sure. But maybe somewhat less of one.
Well, again, I appreciate your help. Thanks.
As Kenda ponders Shirley's problems, he wonders how she wound up living life on the margins of the Colorado Springs drug trade. That question is best answered by Shirley's ex-husband, Sean.
I think Shirley's troubles began with the availability of cocaine. It was the 80s, and it was everywhere.
Drug addiction is a very equal opportunity thing. I mean, how many alcoholic housewives did I know when I was a little kid in the 50s? Unfortunately, she was one of those people that tries something and dislikes it way too much.
That stuff just overtook her life. It really just completely turned her into somebody that I didn't even recognize anymore.
I would see my mom on the weekends, and then that got less and less as obviously her problem grew into something bigger.
Drugs chemically reprogram your brain. All of your loyalties, all of your concerns, all of your loved ones, and everything you've ever been fades away into the past. All that matters now is the next high.
Later that night, Kenda checks in with his detectives, who've been questioning the patrons at the Lair Lounge.
How you doing? What we got so far?
Well, nobody heard any gunshots or anything like that. The music was too loud. Hey, but get this. There was an argument between the two girls.
The victims?
Yeah, and another customer. And everybody heard that.
All right, is that the bartender?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, bar people are interesting people. They pay attention. They have very good instincts about human nature.
You tell me what happened tonight?
There were these two guys in here, Felipe Ortiz and Paul Palachek.
They're drinking together, and across the bar are Michelle and Shirley, who are also drinking and talking amongst themselves.
It turns out that Paul Palachek is the brother of James Palachek, Shirley's ex-boyfriend.
Did Paul have a problem with Shirley after they broke up?
I think so.
But according to the bartender, Paul Palachek wasn't the one causing trouble.
I just leave him. That's what
I
she
know,
did.
I know. I know what I need
It's
to
not
do.
that
I just.
Yo, where the hell is my money?
Excuse me?
You owe Paul money. He owes me money. You owe me. Where is my money?
Listen, I don't have money. I don't know who you are. She doesn't owe you money. She doesn't even know you.
Nobody knew what the argument was about, but they said it was pretty intense because Shirley was actually crying.
Look, buddy, I don't know what your problem is, but you're not going to cause a problem here. Go back to your seat or leave.
According to the bartender, half an hour later, Shirley and Michelle got ready to go.
The bartender remembers the girls go out the front door. Paul gets up and goes to the bathroom. And Felipe goes out the front door. Now, that is odd.
Did Felipe Avila Ortiz follow the two women out to the parking lot, then shoot them at point-blank range? Not according to the bartender.
The front doors of this bar are glass, but they're covered mostly with posters advertising what beer is on special today and that sort of thing. But the lower part of the glass is not obstructed. So when Felipe goes out on the porch, the bartender seems to remember that she sees his legs in the lower part of the door.
The bartender tells Kenda that a few minutes later, Felipe came back inside, and Paul returned from the men's room shortly after that.
Then they both decide they're leaving and they walk out the front door, and that's the last anybody sees.
With Paul in the bathroom and Felipe visible through the front window, it seems neither man could be the shooter, but Kenda's hesitant to scratch them off the list just yet.
Well, I appreciate your help, and everyone's free to go now.
Kenda instructs his men to track down Felipe Avila Ortiz and Paul Palachek. Along the way, officers uncover a disturbing new lead.
Patrol officer working the west side has a guy who comes forward to him who is a doper. His name is Jason Starks.
Hey, what can I do for you? I need some protection. What's going on? My life's in danger. I got information on those 3 murders.
According to Jason, rival drug dealers on the west side of Colorado Springs have joined forces to take out several customers.
There was great rumor on the street among people involved with the folks selling and the folks buying that there was a hit list of people who were in trouble with the sellers.
They said, I've seen the list. And Shirley and Michelle's names were on it. And that girl in Elbert County, she was on the list too.
When you're getting information that there's a hit list out there and that 3 of the people that have been shot within last week were on that hit list, you have to take it pretty seriously.
I don't think it'd be a good idea to not pay your debt to a drug dealer. These are serious people, and they do take care of business.
Graham.
Could there be a kernel of truth in there somewhere? Could there be maybe a small list that contains those 3 girls? Now that is possible. Could that work? I think it could.
For exclusive footage, go to investigationdiscovery.com.
We have a dead girl, Michelle Behill. Her friend Shirley Harper Swally is also dead. Elbert County has a dead girl named Sherry Holmes. Our informant says all 3 of these people's names are on a hit list.
Can you meet the detective at the diner in about an hour? The one up the street. I'm going to stay with you.
Yeah. Is it possible that they're linked? Yeah, it is possible.
But in order to determine if this trio of homicides is the work of the same killer, Lt.Joe Kenda needs to talk face-to-face with Jason Starks.
Coffee, please. Same.
Officer, I'm really glad you're here. I'm freaking out, man.
Who are these guys, Jason?
The Mexican Mafia, dude.
Given the nature of Sherry Holmes' death in Elbert County, Kenda takes Jason's statement seriously.
Now, the Mexican Mafia is a street term applied to the Mexican cartels as a group. Now, are those people capable of murder? Oh boy. Yeah, they are. They not only do it, they like it.
But the more Kenda listens, the less believable Jason's story becomes.
You've personally seen this list?
Yes, sir.
How many names are on this list?
There's 34 names on the list, 20 men, 14 girls. Those 2 girls got killed, they were on it.
I hear this story and I'm just like, come on. It's not that the Mexican cartels are not capable of that. They don't write down, first of all. They don't make lists. They got them in their head. They don't contain 34 names at a time. They might contain 1 or 2. It's preposterous. And so is Jason.
Guys are not played. My friend told me about it. He stays in a hotel down there by a big green sign off North Nevada.
Jason.
He is higher than a kite. This is drug-induced paranoia.
Do you use meth, Jason?
Sometimes.
When drug addicts get together, they whip themselves into a frenzy of fantastic tales of how they are going to be the victims of former Russian agents in a whisper mode helicopter coming over Pikes Peak, and their whole mission is to kill them. It just goes on and on and on.
How many days you been up?
I'm not sure, man.
Did you use this morning? You used before I just came down here.
You need to get some sleep.
When you come down, think about this list some more. If you're still worried, give me a call. I'll come see you.
You have to talk to everybody, so we do, but then you have to make a value judgment. How valuable is this? In my mind, not at all.
With Jason Starks' story a dead end, there's still nothing connecting Kenda's case to the Holmes murder in Elbert County.
Why don't you go home for the night? I'm gonna head back to the bar and check in.
All right, Lieutenant. See you tomorrow.
As the sun rises over Colorado Springs, Kenda hopes his investigators have unearthed some additional evidence.
Hey, did you find anything else since I was gone? Actually, we found a lot. There were 2 shell casings on the ground next to the car. Apparently, they'd been kicked around by the paramedics.
Shortly after arriving on scene, investigators discovered 2 9mm casings. Now they've got 2 more shell casings.
Were they same caliber? They're 25.
So that immediately tells you have 2 different guns that are used in this offense.
So we had 2 shooters. I think so.
It's not one guy with 2 guns who's running back and forth between these victims. This is simultaneous gunfire. To have 2 shooters involved makes this very, very interesting.
But the new pair of shell casings isn't nearly as telling as the next piece of evidence.
Well, let me show you what we found in the bathroom.
There on the bathroom floor are blood-stained paper towels.
Was all that in the trash? Yeah.
It was fairly close to the bottom of the trash can. It looked like someone had intentionally shoved it down into the trash.
Kenda is reminded of the movements of Paul Palachuk and Felipe Avila Ortiz just prior to the shooting.
You have customers saying the girls leave. At that point, Paul goes to the men's room. They think Felipe goes and stands on the front porch.
Could the blood evidence tie Paul and perhaps Felipe to the murder? Kenda has a novel idea.
The men's room door is right next to the back door. In the physical arrangement of this bar, the bartender and the customers cannot see the men's room door, nor can they see the back door to the bar by sitting in their normal position.
If someone wanted to exit out the back door, they could easily do that without being seen by people behind the bar.
So you could come and go however you wanted to. You have people saying that Paul went to the men's room. Are they lying? No, they're not lying. They're telling you their memory of the event.
My assumption is that Paul Palachuk went toward the bathroom, but he went out that back door.
Felipe goes out the front door. They confront the 2 girls in the car, shoot the girls.
Came back cleaned up in the bathroom and returned to the bar.
This revelation prompts Kenda to question the validity of other eyewitness statements as well.
You have a bartender who says Ortiz never leaves the front porch because she sees his legs. Well, are you staring at his legs? Or are you emptying ice out of a bucket, making drinks for people behind you, pouring 2 draft beers? We're back to where we were to start with. Felipe and our man Paul Palachuk. So we're looking everywhere for these 2 guys. Why is neither one of you where you're supposed to be?
In speaking with friends and associates, detectives gained some valuable information about their 2 prime suspects.
Felipe is a middle-level drug dealer. He sells dope to the Palachuk brothers, who in turn sell it to customers. And then when they get that money, they repay Felipe.
That business hierarchy, coupled with the $2,500 Shirley owed Paul Palachek's brother James, may explain why Shirley and Michelle wound up dead.
What if James owed that money to Paul and couldn't pay him? Shirley took it. What if Paul, in turn, owed that money to Felipe? Now that's something that works for me. Now you have drug dealers who have been ripped, and they can't put up with that.
Finally, 6 days after the double homicide,
officers see Paul Palachek's car parked at a motel. They know he's there.
Police prepare to enter the motel with extreme caution.
There is no question this is an armed and dangerous individual, and you're going to take every advantage to not be hurt or shot or killed in the process of arresting this guy.
Police, open up! Police, open up!
Once you kill, it's just numbers after that. So when officers make that kind of arrest, it's with guns drawn.
What's your hand? Come door. Back.
Colorado Springs police have just apprehended Paul Palachek.
Go ahead and search the room.
One of two men wanted for the double murder of Michelle Vigil and Shirley Harper Swally.
You're under arrest for 2 counts of murder.
Hey, I had nothing to do with that. I was in the bathroom when those girls were killed.
You want to tell me about it?
Want my lawyer.
Do they need Paul's confession? Not necessarily.
A statement is icing on the cake, but you already have the cake.
Even without a confession from Paul Palachek, Kenda has a good idea of how the crime went down.
I would suspect Felipe's first attempt is to get the money. And I would suspect her reply was, I don't have it.
Do I need to tell you how we handle problems?
After the argument, Felipe and Paul hatch a more vicious plan.
Let's just go home.
Yes.
Start over tomorrow, okay?
Seriously.
I'm so crowded in there.
They approach the car, the girls roll the windows down because they know them, they know both of them.
Seriously, what is your problem?
And what happens next? There is no discussion. There is gunfire.
What the hell's wrong with you? I told you.
Bang, 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 bang. That's what they want.
Paul Palachek is convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and is sentenced to life in prison. But the case is far from closed.
Investigators tried to locate Felipe, and through the course of the investigation, it was found that he probably had taken off and returned back to Mexico. Now, if he were to return back to the United States, he would be arrested. There is no statute of limitations for murder.
As for the third victim, Sherry Holmes, the Elbert County Sheriff's Office finds no connection to Felipe Avila Ortiz and Paul Palachek. But there's more to the story.
These 2 cases were quite related, not in a way anybody ever would have figured.
The man ultimately charged with the murder of Sherry Holmes turns out to be someone Kenda had suspected in the double homicide at the Lair Lounge.
Gino Yaquez, who is the boyfriend of Shirley, is the architect of the murder of Sherry Holmes.
Gino, who was so eager to help police solve Shirley's murder, was simultaneously trying to cover his own tracks.
If you recall, I said when Gino got out of that van, he had the look. Elbert County says, I was right about that. He had more than the look. He had the willingness.
Rumor has it that Gino Jaquez is a mid-level drug dealer on the west side, and Sherry Holmes was one of his clients.
He began to get worried because there started to be some feedback to him that she was talking to the sheriff's departments out there.
They decide they're going to kill this girl, and he assigns one of his minions to carry out the task, who in fact takes this girl by force out to Elbert County, kills her, covers her in peanut butter in the hope that carnivores will drag her off into the sunset.
With the final pieces of the puzzle in place, Gino and his henchman, James Moss, are convicted of murdering Sherry Holmes.
Are these crimes connected? No, they're not connected. Are these people connected? Absolutely they're connected by their common interest in the sale, distribution, and consumption of illegal drugs.
I wished we would have had more time together with Mickey. I wish I could see her. I wish I could hug her and tell her how important she was to us.
Tell your children every day that you love them, because we don't know from one day to the next what's going to happen. I don't care how old they are, always let them know you care about them.
I think my mom was ashamed of her drug addiction. We learned a little while after her death that she had went and talked to our pastor, and they spoke for a while, and she ended up giving her life to the Lord.
Shirley made plans to leave town and enter a drug rehab program. But in a tragic twist of fate, she was murdered the day before her flight.
If she would have made the plane ticket for 3 days earlier, and it's tough to say, but my daughters might still have their mom, and the world might still have Shirley, because she was really a fantastic person before that damn drug got hold of her.
Lives wasted, just wasted. Shirley is trying to get back to where she was when she was a mother of two. Michelle is just trying to do the right thing. Look out for her.
At 4:17 a.m., a taxi idles on Parramatta Road, engine ticking in the cold like a second hand you can hear. The driver keeps checking his mirror, waiting for the passenger who said, "Just a second." The back door is still open. Street light spills into the cabin in a thin yellow blade. On the seat lies a handbag, unzipped, as if it was torn from someone mid-motion. Lipstick uncapped. Keys. A ferry timetable creased down the middle. And a sketchbook with a pencil sketch of the harbour bridge, the lines rushing forward as if drawn in a hurry. By sunrise, Sydney is already chewing on it. A young woman vanished after stepping out of a cab in the inner west. No goodbye. No call. No trace. Radio presenters let the words hit like sirens: missing, mysterious, bizarre. The papers print her face under a headline that feels too big for a human being. Her name is Eliza Marlowe. 26. Graphic designer. Lives in a narrow terrace in Newtown, with peeling paint and a balcony that looks out over jacarandas. Friends call her Liza. Her mum calls her darling. She carries spare hairpins and tiny notebooks, the kind of details that used to mean nothing until they become inventory. Friday, June 13, 2008. Winter in the city, the air sharp enough to bite. Eliza meets friends at a pub off King Street. It's a small birthday gathering. Warm light, loud music, ordinary chaos. Witnesses remember the night only in fragments, because normal nights don't imprint, not until they become the last night. She wears a dark coat and black flats. She buys a round. She laughs. Then at 1:38 a.m., she steps outside to take a call. Withheld number. Less than a minute. One friend watching through the glass says Eliza's shoulders tighten, chin lowering like she's being warned. When she comes back inside, she smiles too quickly and says it's nothing. Around 1:40 a.m., the group splits. Eliza says she's getting a cab. She hugs them, tight and fast, and walks into the wind that tastes of rain and exhaust. A CCTV camera outside the pub catches her at 1:52 a.m. grainy footage. Streetlight glare. Eliza stands near the curb, shifting her weight, scanning for headlights. She checks her Nokia, thumbs a message, looks up again. A car passes. Another. For a moment she steps back, as if reconsidering, then leans forward, watching the road. A taxi driver later tells police he picked her up around 2:05 a.m. near the pub. He says she gave an address, then corrected herself. Marlborough Street, then Marlborough Avenue. He describes her as quiet, sober enough, polite. 10 minutes into the trip, she asked him to pull over near a servo on Parramatta Road. "I just need air," she said. He watched her step out, coat pulled tight, phone in hand, and walk a few meters toward the bright rectangle of the forecourt. He waited. 1 minute. 2. Then longer. He called out. No answer. The road hissed with passing cars. At 4:17 a.m., still no passenger, he reached back, saw the handbag, and something in him dropped. He drove to the station with the back door still loose on its hinge, the open mouth of that cab carrying the first hard evidence of a night that refused to make sense. The handbag is logged, photographed, sealed. Forensics swab the handles, the zipper, the phone screen. They find Eliza's prints. They also find a partial print that doesn't match anyone in the system. The sketchbook inside is damp at the edges. Her wallet is there, cash still inside. Her keys are there. Her identity is there. But the one thing that matters, her, has been peeled away. Detectives canvass the servo and pull CCTV. The cameras are old, aimed at pumps more than faces. In the footage, Eliza appears at 2:16 a.m., a silhouette crossing the forecourt, head down, moving with purpose. Then the image hiccups. Static blooms across the screen for exactly 11 seconds. 11 seconds of nothing. Then the picture returns, and Eliza is gone from the frame. A technical glitch, the manager says. Old equipment. But those 11 seconds become a trench in the case. Every theory later will try to sprint across it. Every suspect will hide inside it. Police sweep the area. They knock on doors. They talk to late-night workers, to residents above takeaway shops, to anyone awake at that hour. The answers come as splinters. Someone heard a shout. Someone saw a woman walking fast. Someone noticed a silver sedan creeping along the curb with its headlights dimmed. Details clash, memories blur, and Parramatta Road keeps swallowing sound. Eliza's Newtown terrace is searched. Nothing looks like a planned disappearance. No packed suitcase. No drained bank account. Her calendar has June 21st circled, Dad's birthday. Her laptop shows routine emails. Her friends say she had plans, holidays she talked about, a project deadline she was stressed over, the small forward-facing worries of someone who expects to be here next week. Phone records give the case its spine. Before she vanishes, ordinary texts to friends. Then at 1:38 a.m., a withheld call. At 1:39, a text sent from her phone, can't talk. Later. At 1:40, another withheld call. At 2:14, her phone pings a tower near Parramatta Road. At 2:19, it pings again, then goes dead. Not a slow fade. A hard stop, like a light switched off. Tracing withheld calls in 2008 is slow and messy, and this one turns out to be routed through a prepaid service. A burner. No name. No billing address. The voice on the other end stays faceless. The idea settles in, heavy and ugly. Eliza didn't simply step out for air. Someone reached her. Someone pulled a string. 4 days later, the city gets its first physical jolt. A council worker clearing debris near the Cooks River finds a plastic bag snagged in reeds, bobbing in the current. Inside, a pair of black flats, scuffed at the toe, and a thin charm bracelet snapped clean. Police retrieve the bag, water dripping from its seams. The shoes match the ones in the pub footage. Eliza's mother identifies the bracelet without hesitation, her fingers shaking even through gloves. The river is searched. Dogs sweep the banks. Divers go down into brown water, hands feeling through silt. Nothing surfaces. No phone. No coat. No body. Just the shoes and the bracelet, offered up like a message. You're close enough to smell it, but not close enough to touch it. The investigation tightens. Interviews sharpen. Friends are questioned again. Pub staff are asked about strangers. Taxi logs are combed. Traffic camera footage is requested, most of it useless, angles wrong, storage overwritten, too many cars, too many shadows. Parramatta Road is a vein of constant motion, it swallows detail without noticing. Outside the station, the city performs its own search. Eliza's face appears on photocopied posters that flutter on poles from Newtown to Ashfield, taped up by strangers with cold fingers. Her mother stands on the footpath in a thick coat and begs into a cluster of microphones, voice cracking on the word please. Her father doesn't speak much. He stares past the cameras as if the answer might be standing behind them. Friends retrace the night in loops, walking the same streets, replaying the same minutes until the pavements feel cursed. Inside the task room, detectives pin maps and printouts to a board until the walls look like a paper storm frozen mid-flight. Phone towers marked in circles. The taxi route drawn in red. The servo CCTV still frame, Eliza's silhouette, taped up like a wanted poster for the missing. A tech officer plays the footage again and again, measuring the static gap, checking the timestamp drift, asking the question nobody wants to say out loud, was the glitch real? Or was it forced? Because 11 seconds is long enough for a door to open, for a hand to clamp over a mouth, for a body to be pushed into a car. Eliza's boyfriend, Tom Harker, is brought in. He says he was home that night, gaming, then asleep. His phone pings near his apartment. His computer shows activity. It's something, not certainty. Detectives ask about the withheld calls. He denies making them. He admits they argued earlier in the week, over a message she saw on his phone from a woman she didn't know. He swears it was nothing. His hands tremble anyway. Suspicion burns hot, because it's human-shaped. But proof doesn't arrive. And proof is what the case starves on. Then, one morning, an envelope appears at the station. No return address. Postmarked from a suburban sorting facility. Inside is a ferry ticket, unused, dated June 14th. And a note written in careful block letters. SHE didn't get ON. The paper smells faintly of petrol. The ink is pressed hard, almost carved. It isn't a confession. It isn't a name. It's a tap on the glass from the dark, letting police know they are being watched. In the bright morning light of 2008 Sydney, trains clattering, cafes opening, commuters hurrying past missing posters, Eliza Marlowe is still gone, and the silence around those 11 seconds is starting to feel less like a gap and more like a doorway. The ferry ticket sits under a desk lamp like a piece of bone pulled from a wound, and the note, SHE didn't get ON, turns the air inside the task room sour, because it isn't information as much as it is presence, the stranger's breath on the back of the neck, a reminder that someone out there knows the shape of the truth and is choosing how much to drip into the light. Detectives photograph it, bag it, run fingertips over the paper's grain, sniff for accelerants the way you'd sniff smoke after a door slams, and when the lab comes back with traces of petrol and a cheap glue residue, it doesn't lead to a person, it leads to 1,000 places, service stations, garages, someone's shed, Sydney in winter, full of cold hands and fuel cans. Handwriting analysts argue over angles and pressure points. The way the downstrokes dig like the writer was angry, or just trying not to shake, and the only conclusion that sticks is the ugliest one. Whoever wrote it knew enough to stay anonymous, enough to keep the message clean. The ferry detail becomes its own tunnel. Eliza's mother insists her daughter never rode ferries unless she had to. Friends say Eliza loved the harbor, but didn't commute across it. Yet someone had a ticket. Someone wanted police to think about water and boarding gates and crowds where you can vanish without making a sound. Officers pull CCTV from Circular Quay and Darling Harbor terminals, but it's late June now, tapes overwritten, hard drive cycling. A clerk remembers a young woman asking about the last service, but the description is a generic ghost, dark coat, hair tied back, slim. Half of Sydney could wear that at 2 a.m. on a Friday. On Parramatta Road, the servo manager grows defensive under questioning, arms crossed, jaw clenched, insisting the cameras glitch all the time, insisting they don't have the kind of money that buys reliable security, and then one detective, tired and sharp, asks to see the recorder unit itself, not the footage, and they follow the manager into a cramped back room that smells of cigarettes and old cardboard. The recorder is stacked under a shelf. Dust thick enough to write in. They pull it out and find the casing has scratches that don't match the pattern of casual neglect. Fresh gouges around the screws. A corner bent as if someone pried at it. A tech officer takes it back to the lab and peels the box apart like a surgeon, and inside there's a story that doesn't belong to chance. A small inline device is tucked into the feed, something cheap and crude, something that can interrupt a signal for a handful of seconds without wiping the whole tape. It isn't a sophisticated hack. It's the opposite. It's a thumb on a switch. 11 seconds of controlled darkness. Someone didn't hope for a glitch. Someone manufactured one. The news hits the media like a match. CCTV tampered. Missing designer snatched on camera. Talkback radio turns vicious. People start locking doors twice. Women text their friends when they get into taxis. Taxi drivers glance into mirrors and see every passenger as a potential headline. And the detectives in that task room feel the case turn from worrying to predatory, from a vanishing to a hunt. They go back through the taxi's route with a stopwatch. They sit in a cab and ride it at 2 a.m., watching how streetlights smear across glass, counting exits, counting dark stretches where a car can pull alongside for 3 seconds and be gone. They map every camera along the corridor. Every business that stays open late. Every alley that feeds into the road like a throat. It becomes geometry. Angles and gaps. Places where a person can disappear if someone else has planned the angles. Eliza's phone is still a missing organ, and without it, the timeline bleeds. So police build a digital shadow. They pull her bank transactions. They pull her email server logs. They check her work computer. They interview her colleagues in a bright office with modern chairs, while outside the windows Sydney keeps moving, indifferent. A co-worker says Eliza had been on edge the last few weeks, not in a dramatic way, in that quiet way that makes you glance up when someone speaks, the way you can hear tension in the silence between sentences. Another co-worker remembers Eliza asking about changing her locks. Another says Eliza mentioned a man who kept showing up at her usual cafe, always sitting where he could see the door. Maybe I'm being paranoid, she'd said, laughing too lightly. Paranoia is a word people use when they don't want to admit fear. Police ask about exes. Names spill out. A former boyfriend from university, a photographer who drank too much, a guy she dated briefly who got weird, a casual fling that didn't even get a label. Detectives chase them all, pulling alibis like threads, checking phone pings, checking receipts, checking the holes between claims. Most of them are dead ends, just human mess. One of them, though, makes the room go quiet. His name is Darren Klein. 34. Works in private security. Used to live near Eliza's street. A neighbor remembers Darren hanging around, smoking outside, watching passers-by like he was counting them. Eliza's friend remembers her describing a creepy guy, who asked her questions outside the corner store, asked if she lived nearby, asked what time she got home from work. Police locate Darren at a rental in Strathfield. He answers the door in track pants, eyes too still, voice polite as glass. He says he doesn't know Eliza. He says he was home on the night she disappeared. He says he doesn't own a silver sedan. In his garage, there's no car. But there are tools. There are wires. There are small electronic components on a workbench. There's an old security camera he's fixing. He explains it all with the smooth impatience of someone used to talking his way past uniforms. Detectives take swabs. They take photos. They ask about petrol. He laughs and says everyone uses petrol. He says he mows lawns sometimes, keeps fuel. He offers them tea like he's the host of a very boring afternoon. When they leave, one of the detectives can't shake the smell. Not the petrol. Something else. The smell of someone standing too close to the line and knowing exactly where it is. A week later, a woman calls Crime Stoppers. Her voice is thin, clipped, as if she's afraid someone can hear her through the phone. She says she worked at the servo that night, casual shift, and she saw something she didn't want to see. She says a man in a high-vis jacket approached the CCTV cabinet outside, the one mounted near the wall, and he acted like he belonged there, like a technician, like a guy doing routine maintenance. She says he had a toolbox. She says he opened the cabinet, did something, closed it, and walked away without buying anything. She didn't think much of it. People in high-vis are invisible. That's what high-vis does. It makes you part of the background. Detectives ask if she can describe his face. She pauses. She says he wore a cap low. She says he had stubble. She says he was tall. She says he moved like he was in a hurry, but not panicked, like a man who knows the time. Then she adds one detail that hits the room like a dropped tray. He had a tattoo on the inside of his wrist. A small black shape. A triangle, maybe. Police bring photo arrays. She points, slowly, trembling, at a face, Darren Klein. The same calm eyes. The same tight mouth. The same posture that looks like confidence until it looks like control. The next step is supposed to be the clean one. A warrant. A search. The kind of move that turns suspicion into evidence. But evidence in this case behaves like mist. When officers return to Darren's rental, the place is half empty. The workbench is cleared. The box of electronic parts is gone. The old camera is gone. The landlord says Darren paid up and left 2 days ago, said he got work out west. No forwarding address. No new number. Just an empty garage that smells faintly of solvent and, again, petrol. Sydney's appetite for the story swells. Media vans squat outside Eliza's parents' home. Reporters deliver their lines with the theatrical urgency of breaking news, even when nothing is breaking, even when the only new fact is that there is still no body. Every so often, a caller claims to have seen Eliza in Bondi, in King's Cross, in Brisbane, in a cafe in Melbourne, alive and pale and refusing to look up. Each tip sends officers running, each tip collapses into nothing, and the repeated collapse starts to bruise the public imagination. People begin to choose their own ending because the truth refuses to arrive. Then, in late July, a jogger finds something else by the Cooks River, lodged under a mangrove root like it was placed there with care. A Nokia phone. Scuffed. Battery missing. The casing scratched deep enough to show pale plastic beneath. Police retrieve it and seal it, and the lab confirms the IMEI matches Eliza's handset. Her phone has been stripped, beaten, silenced. And when technicians pull what they can from its memory, they find one thing that refuses to die: an unsent draft message, time-stamped at 2:18 a.m. It's 6 words. No punctuation. All lowercase. His here I can't breathe. The room goes quiet again, but this time it's not the quiet of mystery. It's the quiet of understanding what those 11 seconds were filled with. The draft doesn't name anyone. It doesn't need to. It's a handprint on the inside of the case, the shape of panic pressed into pixels. It also sharpens a question that every detective has been avoiding because it's the kind that changes the air. If Eliza had time to type that, even as a draft, even as terror narrowed her world to a tunnel, then she was conscious. She was alive. And she was close enough to send help, but not close enough to reach it. They go harder after Darren Klein. National alerts. Border checks. His bank accounts are watched. His old employers are interviewed. A former supervisor says Darren was good with systems, good with cameras, and had a temper if you embarrassed him. A woman who dated him briefly tells detectives he liked control, liked testing her, liked showing up places uninvited and then smiling like it was romantic. He once told her, half joking, that if he wanted to disappear someone, he could. She laughed at the time. She doesn't laugh now. And then the case spits up a second name, one that doesn't fit the first, one that complicates the shape of it all. A forensic analyst re-examines the partial print from Eliza's handbag. It's not in the Australian system, but the ridge pattern is clear enough to run internationally. Weeks pass. Then a hit comes back from New Zealand. A man named Silas Rowan. Late 30s. Charged years earlier for abduction, case collapsed, witness refused to testify. Known to travel. Known to use burner phones. Known to work casual jobs under false names. Detectives pin his photo on the board beside Darren's. 2 faces. 2 possible wolves. Eliza's draft message, his here, now stretches like a bridge between them. Which one is he? Which one walked into that servo forecourt? Which one reached for the switch that created 11 seconds of darkness? Sydney, 2008, feels suddenly smaller. The harbour, the roads, the bright cafes, the terraces lined with trees, everything now seems like scenery for something that can happen without warning, without witnesses, without mercy. And in the middle of it all, Eliza's mother keeps a light on in the front room every night, a small constant glow against the winter dark, because the mind reaches for ritual when it can't reach the person, because somewhere inside her the most violent part of the mystery isn't the idea of a predator, it's the idea of her daughter stepping into that 11-second blackout and realizing, in a single collapsing breath, that the world had stopped looking. The 2 photos stare out from the board like twin doorways into different kinds of hell, and the room feels tighter the longer detectives look at them, because now the case has options, and options mean time, and time is the one thing Eliza never got. Darren Klein, the local shadow with the calm eyes and the technician's hands. Silas Rowan, the drifter with a paper trail that refuses to stay in one country. 2 men who could both be he, 2 men who could both have known exactly how long 11 seconds lasts, when you're trying to scream without making noise. They go after Silas first, because the fingerprint doesn't lie the way people do. The New Zealand record is thin but poisonous. Abduction allegation, intimidation rumors, jobs under different names, a habit of slipping out of town whenever the air turns hot. Australian federal police are pulled in, and suddenly the case isn't just a missing woman, it's a cross-border hunt with files moving between agencies, names copied into shared databases, airport cameras rewound and watched with aching eyes. The first hit comes from a motel in Penrith. A manager calls in after seeing Silas's photo on the news. Says a man checked in mid-June, paid cash, stayed 2 nights, asked for a room with a view of the car park. The signature on the logbook is S.R. The CCTV shows a man in a cap, head down, carrying a toolbox that looks too heavy for the way he swings it. He never smiles. He never looks up. The footage is poor, but the posture matches Silas's file shots well enough to make detectives' jaws tighten. Inside the motel room, the cleaners remember an oily smell. They remember the bin stuffed with takeaway containers and empty water bottles. They remember a towel stained dark near one corner, as if someone wiped grease or blood. The towel is long gone. The bins have been emptied 100 times since. But the manager also remembers something else. A folded street directory left behind in the bedside drawer, pages creased open around the inner west, Parramatta Road circled with pen in 2 places. 2 places that sit like teeth in the route Eliza's taxi took. One circle is the servo. The other circle is a narrow street behind a row of warehouses near Ashfield, a place where trucks idle and no one asks questions at night. Detectives roll there after dark, headlights off, the city's hum turning low and mean. The warehouses are silent slabs, metal doors streaked with grime. A stray cat darts across the road and vanishes. They walk the lane with torches, catching the glitter of broken glass. Near a skip bin, they find a small patch of disturbed gravel, as if something heavy was dragged. There's a strip of duct tape stuck to the fence, fluttering weakly. Lab tests later pull fibers from it, dark wool, consistent with the kind of winter coat Eliza wore. It isn't proof. It's a bruise on the case. Another spot that hurts when you press it. Then the case swerves. Hard. A bank flag pings. Someone tried to use Eliza's card. Not in Sydney. Not even in New South Wales. A fuel purchase attempt at a remote service station on the Hume Highway, near Gundagai, at 3:02 a.m. on a Sunday. Declined. Wrong PIN. The station's camera shows a man in a hoodie, face blurred by motion, but the wrist, clear for a split second, shows a tattoo inside the forearm. A small black triangle. The image freezes on the screen. It doesn't prove it's Darren Klein, but it matches the servo worker's description, so closely it feels like a taunt. And the use of Eliza's card, wrong PIN, declined, feels sloppy, almost childish, the kind of mistake a man makes when he's confident the world can't touch him. Detectives fan out. Highway patrol checks vehicles. Local police in towns along the route are alerted. Darren's name becomes a whisper in briefings, a face printed and passed from hand to hand like contraband. Meanwhile, Silas Rowan's file refuses to close. 2 suspects. 2 trails. 2 kinds of danger. The task room starts to feel like it's split down the middle, each half pulling in a different direction, each half terrified the other is the right one. Eliza's parents are told as little as possible, because too much truth can collapse a person, but not enough truth can turn them into fury. Her mother clutches the note, "SHE didn't get ON," as if the paper might still carry the heat of the hands that wrote it. Her father begins driving the inner west at night, slow loops, scanning gutters and vacant blocks, searching for anything that looks wrong, like grief has given him a new sense for shadows. On a Thursday morning, an envelope arrives again. This time it's shoved through the mail slot of Eliza's parents' terrace, not delivered by post. No stamp. No postmark. Just a rough piece of brown paper folded twice, and sealed with clear tape. Inside is a single Polaroid photo. It shows the inside of a car. The angle is low, as if the camera was held near someone's lap. A woman's hand is visible, fingers splayed, nails bitten short. On the ring finger, a faint tan line where a ring used to sit. The hand is pressed against a dirty floor mat. Above it, a shoe, men's boot, rests near the edge of the frame, and on the boot's lace is a smear of dark, dried mud. In the corner, barely visible, a bit of fabric, dark wool. No face. No location. No date. But Eliza's mother looks at the hand and starts making a sound that doesn't belong in any language. Police scramble. The Polaroid is rushed to the lab, fingerprints sought, DNA swabbed, the tape lifted for trace evidence. The photo paper is analyzed. The chemical profile suggests a batch of film sold in Australia, not uncommon. The boot is examined in the image, brand guesses, tread pattern speculation, but it could be any work boot, any man, any road. Except for one detail that cuts clean through the fog, in the reflection of the car window, distorted and faint, is a road sign. White letters. 2 syllables. It could be Bargo. It could be BIR. The angle warps it. But it's enough to send units south, scanning roadside ditches, checking abandoned cars, crawling through scrub with torches, listening to their own breath and the crackle of leaves. Nothing. And that nothing is its own violence. It's a message: you can run, but you'll always arrive late. Inside the task room, tempers flare. Detectives argue about priorities. One insists Darren is the hand on the switch, the high-vis technician, the triangle tattoo. Another insists Silas's fingerprint on the handbag is the smoking gun, and everything else is noise. The sergeant in charge slams a palm on the table and tells them to stop falling in love with theories. Find the person, he snaps. The rest can wait. They try to build a bridge between Darren and Silas. Phone records. Employment overlaps. Shared associates. Anything. For a while, there's nothing but air. Then a junior analyst spots a name that appears in both files, like a ghost node linking 2 dark networks. A man called Rafe Nasser. Small-time fixer. Sells second-hand electronics. Helps people wipe phones. Known to trade in burner sims and surveillance gear. Darren once bought a camera system from him. Silas was once caught with a phone traced back to one of Rafe's batches. Rafe lives in a cramped unit above a shop in Lakemba, and when detectives knock, he takes too long to answer. Inside, the air is thick with solder and stale noodles. Boxes of cables and broken phones stack like rubble. Rafe smiles the way a man smiles when he knows the law can bruise him, but not break him. He says he's just a businessman. He says people buy phones. People buy cameras. People are paranoid. He laughs and shrugs like all of this is entertainment. Then they show him Eliza's photo. The smile drops. Not much. Just a millimeter. But in a case made of millimeters, it matters. Rafe denies knowing Eliza. Denies knowing Darren beyond a sale. Denies knowing Silas at all. He tries to talk fast, tries to flood the room with words so the truth can drown inside them. But his hands betray him. He keeps touching his left pocket. Touching. Checking. Touching again. A detective asks him what's in the pocket. Rafe says nothing. Another detective says, empty it. A small plastic bag falls onto the table. Inside are 2 SIM cards, still in their frames. Unused. And a cheap remote control device the size of a matchbox, with a tiny antenna and a toggle switch. The kind you can attach to a camera feed. The kind that can kill an image for 11 seconds. Rafe goes pale and starts talking before anyone even asks again. He says the device isn't his. He says a man paid him cash to hold it. A man he didn't know. A man in a cap. A man with stubble. Everyone has stubble, he says, voice cracking. You want me to remember stubble? They lean in. They press. They mention Darren. They mention Silas. Rafe sweats. Then he says the sentence that makes the whole room tilt. The man called him 2 days after the disappearance and told him to clean the line. Told him to wipe a phone and destroy a chip. Rafe says he didn't ask questions, because questions get you hurt. Rafe says the caller used to burn a number. Rafe says the man promised more money if he kept his mouth shut. Then Rafe offers a new detail, like a crumb tossed from a shaking hand. The man had an accent. Not Australian. Not New Zealand. Something else. European, maybe. Hard to place. And he had a scar across the knuckle of his right hand, a thin white line like a knife kiss. Police pull Darren's old photos. No scar. They pull Silas's file. There it is, noted in a booking sheet years ago. Small scar across right knuckle, origin unknown. The air in the room changes. It becomes heavier. More certain. Not certain enough to close the case, but enough to make the path forward feel less like wandering and more like pursuit. They put a tail on Rafe anyway, because fixers draw predators like flies draw rot. Within 48 hours, a dark sedan begins appearing near Rafe's building at night, idling, lights off. The same sedan appears on another street 2 nights later, parked beneath a tree, engine cold. A plainclothes officer watches from across the road, heart thumping, radio humming. The driver never gets out. The car simply waits, then rolls away like it's satisfied. Plates are run. Stolen. Of course they are. On the 4th night, Rafe is moved quietly to a safe location. He argues. He complains. He swears his fine. He stops swearing when he sees the fear in the detective's face, the kind of fear that comes from knowing how easy it is for someone to step out of darkness and turn a person into a headline. The next morning, Rafe's unit above the shop burns. Not a roaring blaze. A precise, controlled fire that eats the electronics first, the boxes of phones, the paper ledgers, the scraps of serial numbers that could have linked to a dozen crimes. The fire inspector calls it suspicious within minutes. An accelerant is found. Petrol again. The same smell threaded through the note, the motel, the case like a signature. Sydney watches the footage of smoke pouring into the street and shivers. People who never cared about missing persons suddenly care. Because now it looks like someone is cleaning up, and cleaning up means there is a mess, and a mess means there is a body somewhere, even if the earth and water refuse to give it back. In the task room, detectives stare at the blackened photos of Rafe's unit and feel the clock speed up. The predator is active. The predator is paying attention. The predator is close enough to light a fire and vanish before anyone can blink. And somewhere, in some locked space, in some moving vehicle, in some hidden room, Eliza's last typed words hang in the air like breath on glass. His "Here I can't breathe." 6 words that now feel less like a draft and more like a timestamp carved into the case. A reminder that while Sydney slept, someone planned an 11-second blackout. Someone watched a young woman step onto a forecourt. And someone decided that the city would never get to know what happened in the dark unless the dark chose to speak. Smoke from Rafe Nasser's unit hangs over Lakemba like a dirty flag, and in the task room the smell of petrol becomes a language everyone understands without translating, because it's no longer just evidence, it's intention, it's someone reaching back into the investigation and squeezing hard enough to remind the detectives that every move they make is being watched from somewhere they can't see. The fire has done its job with cruel efficiency, cables melted into black noodles, phone casings fused, paper turned to lace, an erasure performed with the calm of a man who isn't improvising, a man who knows exactly what matters, and what can be sacrificed, and the only reason the police aren't burying Rafe too is because they moved him first, because one nervous officer had a bad feeling and acted on it. And now the entire case pivots on that single instinct like a compass needle flicking toward north. Rafe sits in a bland safe house room with cheap carpet and a buzzing fluorescent light, looking smaller than he did in his shop, looking like a man who just realized the ocean behind him is full of teeth, and he keeps rubbing his palms on his jeans as if he can wipe away the last month. He talks in bursts now, not because he's suddenly brave, but because fear has turned into panic and panic needs somewhere to go. He says the burner number that called him, he deleted it, he swears, he always deletes. That's how you stay alive. But then he remembers something else. Something stupid. Something he did without thinking. He had written part of the number on a scrap of paper, not the whole thing. Just the last 4 digits, because he was expecting another call and wanted to know if it was the same voice. He says the paper was in his unit. He says it's ash now. And then he starts crying, not loud, not dramatic, just the quiet leaking of a man watching his own usefulness burn. A detective leans in, voice low, and asks him the only question that matters. Where did you meet him, physically, face to face? Rafe swallows, eyes darting, trying to calculate which answer kills him slower. He finally says a place, an underground car park beneath an old shopping complex near Ashfield, the kind of concrete belly where footsteps echo, and CCTV is always broken. He says the man arrived early, stood near a pillar, didn't like being under lights. He says the man didn't drive in, he walked in, which means he parked somewhere else, or he came by foot. He says the man wore gloves even though it wasn't that cold. He says the man's voice was steady, almost bored, like he was discussing a bill. He says the man's eyes didn't blink much. They take Rafe back there in an unmarked car, late at night, the city outside the window turning into streaks and reflections. In the car park, the air is damp and stale, the kind that collects under concrete where the sun never touches. A security light flickers. The space smells faintly of mold and oil. Rafe points at a pillar. He points at a corner where someone can see the entrance ramp without being seen. He points at a spot where the man handed him the little switch device wrapped in plastic. Then Rafe says something that makes the detective's hand tighten on his torch. The man wasn't alone. 2 men, he says. One stayed back, watching. The second did the talking. The second had the scar across his knuckle. The second had an accent Rafe couldn't place. But the man watching, tall, shoulders slightly hunched, had a triangle tattoo on his inner wrist. Now the board in the task room changes shape. It stops being 2 separate doors and becomes a corridor connecting them. Silas Rowan, linked by fingerprint, scar, accent. Darren Klein, linked by tattoo, servo sighting, the fuel station footage on the highway. 2 men. 2 roles. One who does the planning and speaks to the fixer. One who handles the equipment and watches the perimeter. The case stops feeling like a lone predator and starts feeling like a team, and that is worse, because teams make mistakes less often. They reopen the Ashfield warehouse lane with new eyes, not as a single drop point, but as part of a route. They pull data from traffic cameras again, combing for stolen plates, matching car silhouettes, looking for patterns, a sedan that appears near the servo and then appears near the lane and then vanishes south. In 2008, the digital net is full of holes, but holes have edges and edges can be traced. An analyst sits for hours watching grainy clips, pausing and rewinding until her eyes burn. She finally finds it. A dark sedan entering a side street off Parramatta Road at 2:23 a.m., 3 minutes after Eliza's phone dies, heading toward Ashfield. The plate is unreadable. But on the rear window, a distinctive sticker, faded, circular, catches the light. They cross-reference. Stolen cars recovered later. Impound photos. Insurance claims. A match appears in a file from 6 months earlier. a vehicle found abandoned near Bankstown, stripped, burned. Same faded circular sticker. The report mentions the car had been hired under a false name from a small rental outfit that didn't ask too many questions. That rental outfit, when detectives pressure the owner, produces a photocopy of the license used, a New Zealand license. The photo is blurry, but the jawline, the eyes, the nose, all of it points towards Silas Rowan like a finger stabbing at the map. The hunt becomes narrower, tighter, a noose that still has too much slack. They pull Silas's travel records. There's a gap in his passport movements, but that doesn't mean he wasn't here, it means he didn't come through the front door. Investigators talk to ferry operators, to freight companies, to customs officers who remember faces. Nothing solid. Then a break comes from an unexpected place. A woman in a western Sydney suburb, who runs a small boarding kennel, remembers a man dropping off a dog in mid-June 2008, paying cash, asking her to keep it for a couple of weeks. She says the dog was a brindle staffy, with a white patch on its chest. She says the man didn't give a real phone number. She says he seemed annoyed by the animal, like it was baggage. She says he had a scar across his knuckle. When detectives show her Silas Rowan's photo, she nods slowly, eyes narrowing, like she's looking at a stain she can't scrub out of her memory. She gives them a detail she'd noticed and never forgotten, because it was strange. The man's boots were muddy, but the mud wasn't local clay, it was sandy, pale, the kind you get near certain riverbeds. That dog, the kennel owner adds, whined for days, the way animals do when something bad has happened and they can smell it on the humans who touched them. Detectives get a warrant for the kennel's old paperwork. A cash receipt is there with a handwritten note, pick up, 28/6. The dog was never picked up. It was eventually adopted out. The date, June 28, lands in their minds with a dull thud. 2 weeks after Eliza vanished. 2 weeks is long enough to keep someone alive. 2 weeks is long enough to move someone. 2 weeks is long enough to decide what to do when the headlines won't stop. They go back to the Polaroid, Eliza's hand on a filthy car mat, the boot, the wool. The lab had enhanced the reflection of that road sign, but the letters were still uncertain. Now, with the kennel owner's mention of sandy mud, detectives widen the search radius southwest. They look at areas where sand meets water, where scrub meets road, where a car can stop without being seen. They place pins on a map. They draw circles. The circles overlap near one place again and again, Bargo. Bargo is quiet country, bushland and back roads, the kind of place you pass without noticing on a drive to somewhere else. The sign fits. The 2 syllables fit. And the drive from Sydney fits a man who wanted distance, but not too much, a man who wanted a place he could control. They send teams. Not uniforms. Plainclothes, unmarked, because if Silas and Darren are watching the investigation, a convoy of police cars is a flare. They quietly check abandoned properties, sheds, old farm outbuildings, the kind of places that smell like dust and rust and forgotten tools. They knock on doors, ask about strange cars, ask about men in high-vis who don't belong. Most residents shrug. Transients are part of the landscape now. But one older man, living alone near the bush, pauses when shown Silas's photo. He says he saw a similar man in June 2008, coming and going from an old fibro cottage down a dirt track, a cottage everyone thought was vacant. He says the man kept the curtains closed even during the day. He says there were nights when he heard a dog barking and then, once, heard a woman's voice, muffled, like a cry pushed into a pillow. The cottage is still there, sagging slightly, weathered by years. The door is locked with a cheap chain. A detective cuts it and steps inside, torch beam slicing the dark. The air is stale, thick with old smoke and rot. The floorboards creak like complaints. In the small lounge room, there's a stain on the carpet, dark and uneven, as if someone spilled something and tried to scrub it out. In the corner, there's a metal ring bolted into the floor, the kind you'd use to secure a heavy piece of furniture, except there's no furniture. There's only a short length of chain, rusted, with a snap hook at one end. The torch beam moves to the bedroom. A mattress on the floor, no sheets. A bucket. A roll of duct tape with a few strips missing. And on the wall, scratched into the paint, faint but deliberate, are letters, 4 of them, jagged, like they were made with a key, Lize. For a moment, nobody speaks, because the world narrows to that crude carving, that small claim of identity left behind in a place designed to erase it. It's the first time in weeks the case feels like it has Eliza's breath inside it. Forensics descend. They take samples from the stain. They bag the duct tape. They lift prints from the bolt ring, the doorknob, the bucket. They search the yard and find boot prints fossilized in dry earth near the back fence, and beside them a patch of pale sand tracked in, the kind the kennel owner described. They find a shallow pit behind the shed, disturbed soil like a scar. Dogs hit on it and sit, tense, whining. Shovels go in. Dirt peels back. Everyone holds their breath. They find nothing but rubbish. Plastic. Rotting timber. Old cans. No bones. No body. No closure. The pit is a decoy, or a failed attempt, or a cruel joke. The emptiness hits harder than if they'd found something, because it means whoever used this cottage understood the psychology of searching. They understood how to lure hope into a hole. But the cottage still yields something else, something colder. Under a loose floorboard in the bedroom, a forensic tech's gloved fingers pull out a small digital voice recorder, wrapped in a plastic bag. The kind a journalist might use. The kind a predator might use if he enjoyed collecting proof of his own power. The battery is dead, but the memory chip remains. They bag it like it's a live grenade. Back in the lab, technicians coax the data out, cautious, careful, knowing that one corrupted file can erase a confession before it's heard. Finally, sound emerges, thin, tinny, trapped in digital compression. There's a hum, like a car engine idling. There are footsteps. Then a voice, male, calm, accented, speaking low. You don't get to choose, the voice says. A second voice, quieter, Australian, mutters something indistinct, like agreement. Then a woman's breathing, fast and ragged, the kind of breathing that turns into sobs when the lungs can't keep up. A whisper follows, almost swallowed by static. A whisper so small it feels like it's pressed directly against the listener's ear. Tom, the woman says. Please. The lab goes silent except for the recorder playback, and that single name detonates inside the case like a flashbang, because Tom Harker, Eliza's boyfriend, has been a suspect in the background, questioned, examined, then pushed aside when evidence drifted elsewhere, and now his name is in the mouth of a woman who sounds like she's fighting for air. It doesn't prove Tom did it. It proves Eliza thought of him in that moment. It proves she was alive in a room with a recorder, alive enough to plead. Detectives rush to Tom, again, harder. They pull him into an interview room, fluorescent lights flattening his face. He's older now, worn down by months of suspicion, eyes red at the edges, voice brittle. They play the audio. They watch his reaction. He flinches at the breathing. He closes his eyes at the whisper. He shakes his head, too fast. That's not me, he says, and it sounds like a prayer he's been repeating for weeks. They ask where he was in late June, where he was on the 28th, where he was on the night the dog was dropped at the kennel, where he was the day the Polaroid might have been taken. Tom gives answers, but the answers have that familiar weakness of human memory under pressure, the way time blurs into a smear when you didn't know you'd need to defend it. His phone records place him in Sydney. His bank transactions show ordinary purchases. Nothing screams guilt. Nothing screams innocence. He is a man trapped inside the radius of someone else's horror. Outside, the media catches wind of a breakthrough near Bargo. They smell blood. They set up again outside Eliza's parents' home. The mother is thinner now, cheeks hollow, eyes too bright. When asked about the cottage, she says nothing at first. Then she whispers, she was there. And the city hears it and shudders, because the missing poster face has suddenly been inside a room with a chain bolted to the floor. In the task room, the board is redrawn yet again. Bargo gets a circle so thick it looks punched through the paper. The kennel owner's receipt is pinned. The recorder is marked. Tom's name is circled in blue, not as a suspect, but as a pressure point, because pressure points are what predators use, and predators pick them for a reason. If Silas and Darren held Eliza, if they recorded her, if they mailed her mother a Polaroid, then they weren't just hiding a crime. They were staging a performance. They were feeding off reaction. Which means they might still be close enough to watch the reaction now. That night, plainclothes units sit in cars along the Bargo Road, watching for headlights that slow near the Fibro cottage, watching for silhouettes that pause. The bush breathes around them. Insects hiss. The moon is a thin blade. Hours pass with nothing but the hum of radios and the ache of waiting. Then, at 2:11 a.m., a dark sedan rolls into the dirt track, slow, careful, lights off until the last second. It stops, engine idling. A figure steps out, tall, shoulders slightly hunched. He stands still for a moment as if listening. Then he walks toward the cottage door with a small object in his hand. A detective whispers into his mic, heart-punching ribs, and every unit in the area tightens like a net drawing closed. The figure reaches the door. The object catches a sliver of moonlight, metallic, key-shaped. He begins to unlock the chain, as if he's done it before, as if this place still belongs to him. And in that instant, the case stops being history and becomes now, the cold air suddenly too sharp, the darkness suddenly crowded, because whoever is at that door isn't a memory, isn't a theory, isn't a photo on a board. He is flesh and breath and intent, standing at the threshold of the room where Eliza carved her name into the wall, and the entire investigation is about to collide with the one thing it has been chasing through static and smoke and silence, the living hand that turned the cameras off for 11 seconds and decided what those seconds would contain. The first shout cracks through the bush like a snapped branch, sharp and unmistakable, and the figure at the door freezes with the key half-turned, the chain trembling against metal as if the cottage itself has just realized it's being watched. And then everything happens at once, torches flare, boots hammer gravel, radios spit static, a chorus of police. Don't move, colliding with the night, yet the man doesn't raise his hands, doesn't drop the key, doesn't even hesitate long enough to be human. He pivots with a speed that feels rehearsed and bolts into the darkness beside the Fibro wall, vanishing behind the corner like smoke slipping from a fist. A detective lunges after him, torch beam skidding across trees, catching nothing but trunks and leaves, and the pursuit becomes a violent geometry, angles, shadows, the sudden drop of a ditch, the crunch of dry sticks underfoot giving away every step. Someone curses, another voice yells, he's heading east, and then a car engine roars awake, not the idle hum, but the full-throated bellow of a vehicle thrown into life under panic, tires spitting dirt, and in the split-second glare of headlights. Swinging through the track, a face flashes in the driver's window, pale and tight, and the wrist on the steering wheel shows it, black triangle, stark as a warning sign. Darren Klein. The sedan rockets out onto the road with its lights dead, the kind of reckless confidence that only exists when someone believes the dark belongs to them and units swing after it. Sirens kept off for the first precious moments, because a siren is a lighthouse and they need a net, not a chase. They need to cut him off, box him in, force him to make a mistake. But Darren doesn't drive like a man improvising. He drives like a man who has already memorized the exits, already measured where the road dips and where the trees thicken, and where a car can disappear into a side track without being seen, and when the sirens finally erupt, it's because the distance is closing and someone decides the noise is worth it. Headlights slice through eucalyptus trunks. The road becomes a black ribbon unfurling under speed. A police car takes a bend too hard, tires squeal, the driver curses, corrects. Darren's sedan swerves onto a gravel shoulder and throws up a cloud of pale dust. And in that dust for half a heartbeat the world looks like a photograph, blurred, grainy, unreal, and then Darren is gone again, cutting hard onto an unlit side road that drops away into bushland. They nearly lose him there. They almost let the dark swallow him the way it swallowed Eliza. A second unit, positioned by chance at the next junction, catches the sedan as it bursts out of scrub like an animal breaking cover, and now it's a true pursuit, lights and sirens and adrenaline, radio calls stacking over each other, the dispatcher's voice trying to keep order while every officer's pulse is telling them to forget procedure, and just catch him. Catch him before he becomes another empty garage, and a burnt room, and a smirk on a photograph pinned to a board. Darren heads northwest, away from Bargo, away from the cottage, away from whatever he came to do at that door. The word comes in, spike strip en route, and the chase lunges toward its first possible ending. A highway patrol vehicle positions itself across a narrow stretch, officers moving quickly, hands steady, because anything less than steady is fatal. The strip is laid. The strip glints. And Darren, either seeing it too late, or choosing arrogance, hits it at speed. There's a sound like a long scream of rubber. The sedan jolts. One tire collapses. Then another. The car fishtails, skids, and slams into a low embankment, with a crunch of metal that makes everyone flinch. The engine coughs. Steam hisses. For a breath, it looks like it's over. Then the driver's door bursts open, and Darren Klein runs. He runs into bush as if the bush owes him protection, as if the trees have been his accomplices all along. Officers pour out, guns drawn but low, because a stray bullet in the dark is a headline nobody wants. They chase the sound of him, breath, footfall, the tearing of fabric through branches, and then a shot cracks the night, not from police, from ahead, from the bush itself, and everyone drops instinctively, hearts slamming into throats, a second shot following a half-second later, and in the torchlight a puff of bark explodes off a tree trunk near an officer's shoulder. Someone is firing at them. It isn't Darren alone. It never was. A voice yells, "Contact front," and the line of officers scatters behind trees and scrub, the bush suddenly not scenery but cover, and the darkness is alive with the ugly knowledge that there's another man out there, unseen, positioned, watching the pursuit like it's a chessboard. And the only reason the police aren't dropping where they stand is because whoever is firing isn't trying to kill them, not cleanly, not efficiently, he's trying to slow them, to fracture the chase, to peel officers away from Darren's trail. A third shot snaps and then silence returns, deeper than before, the kind of silence that screams. A sergeant barks orders. 2 officers hold the perimeter. Another pair move forward, torches off, using starlight and instinct. Somewhere in the scrub a branch cracks. Darren's breathing, fast, ragged, flickers close, then farther, like a signal fading. An officer lunges, fingers catching a sleeve, and for one electrified instant there's a struggle, fabric tearing, bodies colliding, the stench of sweat and dirt. Then Darren twists free and disappears again, leaving behind a shred of dark cloth in a gloved hand and the unmistakable feeling of a man slipping through the narrowest gap. They search for hours. Dogs brought in. Flashlights sweeping. The bush yields thorns and spiderwebs and nothing else. Dawn starts to thin the sky, turning black to bruised gray, and the police finally call it. Darren is gone. The second shooter is gone. The only thing left is a wrecked sedan steaming on the roadside, its interior stinking of petrol and cheap air freshener, and the sense that they were inches away from the kind of capture that changes everything, and still the case has found a way to keep itself open. Inside the sedan, they find what Darren didn't have time to burn. There's a toolbox in the back seat, scuffed and heavy. Inside are wire cutters, electrical tape, a bundle of cables, a cheap soldering iron. There's also a small black cap with dried mud crusted into the brim, and in the center console a pack of instant camera film, Polaroid. The same brand as the photo sent to Eliza's mother. In the glove compartment, wrapped in a greasy rag, there's a compact camera, its memory card still inside. The techs handle it like it's fragile evidence and a curse at the same time. They pull the card. They copy it. They open the images. And the first photograph, that fills the screen, is enough to make one officer turn away and swallow hard. Eliza. Not her face clearly, not a neat identification photo that would be merciful. She's in a dim room. Her hair is messy. Her eyes are wide and unfocused. There's duct tape across her mouth. A chain is visible near her ankle. The angle suggests the photographer was standing over her. In the background, on a wall with chipped paint, faint scratches can be seen, jagged letters, Lize. The Bargo Cottage. There are more images. Eliza sitting against a wall, tape removed, mouth swollen, eyes wet. Eliza's hand pressed to a floor mat, matching the Polaroid sent to her mother. A close-up of a boot with muddy laces. A photo of a dog, brindle staffy, eyes wary. A photo of a man's wrist holding a switch device near a camera cabinet, triangle tattoo in clear focus, the gesture almost proud. Then a final image that freezes the room in a different way, not with horror, but with the sharp edge of recognition. It's taken at night, outside the cottage. Two men are in frame. One is Darren Klein, face half-lit by the camera flash, jaw clenched. The other stands slightly behind him, blurred by motion, but the right hand is visible, knuckles catching the flash, thin white scar across one knuckle like a slash of moonlight. Silas Rowan. Now they have what they didn't have before. Proof that the two men exist together in this story. Proof that Eliza was alive in that cottage. Proof that the performance, the Polaroid, the note, the threats, was real. And with proof comes a different kind of pressure, the kind that makes agencies stop being polite and start being desperate. A statewide manhunt is launched that afternoon. Roads watched. CCTV pulled from every service station that still has footage. Patrols sent to every rental yard, every cheap motel, every ferry terminal. Darren's associates are raided. His phone contacts are dragged into interview rooms. His old job in private security is ripped open and examined like a body on a table. And with each hour, the case shifts in the public mind from mystery to siege. Eliza's parents are brought to the station and shown one image, only one, because there are limits to what grief can survive. The moment the photo appears, Eliza's mother makes a sound that isn't crying, it's something deeper, something like the body trying to reject reality, and her father's knees buckle so fast an officer catches him. For a few seconds the room is chaos, hands on shoulders, voices urging breath, water offered and refused, and then the mother grips the edge of the table and demands the question that has been rotting inside her for weeks. Is she alive? The detective doesn't answer right away, because any answer is a blade. He says they don't know. He says they are looking. He says they have leads. The mother's eyes harden with a kind of fury that surprises everyone. You had leads, she says, voice shaking. And she was still, the sentence breaks. There is no word that fits. They move fast on the Bargo cottage again, tearing it apart with the certainty of those photographs. Floorboards lifted. Walls tapped. The yard dug. The pit behind the shed widened. Dogs brought in, whining and circling. A cadaver dog hits on a spot near the back fence where the soil is different, packed and disturbed. Shovels bite. Dirt piles. The air fills with the raw smell of earth and roots. A forensic officer's hand goes up, stop, and everyone leans in, breath held. They pull up a plastic tarp wrapped around something long. The tarp is opened slowly, carefully, like unwrapping the last gift you ever wanted. Inside is a bundle of clothing, dark wool coat, jeans, a scarf. Eliza's clothes. No body inside. No bones. No hair. Just the clothing, folded almost neatly, placed like a message. An absence packaged as evidence. And when the lab tests the coat, they find traces of blood, Eliza's DNA, and beneath that, another profile, male, unknown at first, then matched to Silas Rowan through New Zealand records. The cold hardens. The case tightens again, but still refuses to close. Because the next 48 hours are a blur of near misses and dead ends. A sighting in Goulburn, 2 men buying fuel, one with a wrist tattoo, one with a bandaged hand. Gone by the time police arrive. A motel room in Yass, sheets stripped, bin emptied, sink wiped down. A stolen car found abandoned near a river crossing, engine still warm. No occupants. Just a cigarette, but in the ashtray, brand uncommon, filtered in a way that suggests someone who likes to keep their hands clean. Detectives trace that cigarette brand to a small tobacconist in a Sydney suburb. The owner remembers selling cartons to a man with an accent and a scar. The owner also remembers the man wasn't alone, another guy waiting outside, tall, high-vis jacket, wrist tattoo visible when he reached for a lighter. The owner says they looked like tradies. That's the genius of it. They look like the background. By the end of the week, the hunt begins to feel like chasing reflections in shattered glass. Darren and Silas are always one move ahead. Always just out of reach. And in the spaces between radio calls, the question keeps pressing against every detective's skull with the weight of a locked door. Where is Eliza now? Because the images prove she was alive at some point after the disappearance. The kennel receipt suggests she might have been held for weeks. The clothing in the ground suggests she was moved. The blood suggests violence. The lack of a body suggests intention. Someone wanted to keep the ending from being told. On the 9th day after the chase, the ocean becomes part of the story. A fisherman off the coast near Wollongong spots something floating, plastic wrapped around a rectangular shape, bobbing in swell. He hauls it up, thinking it's rubbish. Inside is a small metal case sealed with tape. Police open it in a lab, and find a memory card and another note, written in the same block letters as before, pressed hard enough to dent the paper. You found the wrong place. The memory card contains one video file. It's short. 30 seconds. Eliza sits in a dim room, the camera close to her face. Her eyes are open, but there's a blankness to them, a drained, distant stare like she's been pulled too far from herself. A male voice off camera says something low and accented, and Eliza flinches. Then she speaks, voice hoarse, forced, as if she's reading from inside her skull. I'm okay, she says. Please stop looking. The words hit like a slap, because they are a lie built to sound like a plea. Her mouth says okay. Her eyes say trapped. And then, just before the clip ends, you hear it, one sharp inhale, the kind the body takes when it's about to cry, and a whisper that slips out anyway, barely audible, not for the camera, for someone else. Tom, she breathes again. Don't. The file cuts. The room watching it doesn't move for a long time. The detectives feel the familiar sickness rise. The predator is still performing. Still directing. Still controlling the narrative with props and notes and images. The city is being played like a radio dial, tuned and retuned to whatever frequency makes people panic hardest. And somewhere beyond the reach of that manhunt, beyond the spikes and the warrants and the torches, Darren Klein and Silas Rowan are still moving, still breathing, still choosing what the world gets to see, leaving behind just enough proof to keep the case alive, and just enough emptiness to keep it bleeding, while Eliza Marlowe remains a presence trapped between photographs and soil and 30 seconds of forced words, her real voice swallowed by the same darkness that flickered across a servo camera for 11 seconds and changed Sydney forever. 30 seconds of forced calm detonates across the city like a bomb that doesn't leave smoke, only nausea, and the words "please stop looking" are replayed on breakfast TV with captions like a verdict, while anyone with eyes can see the truth living behind them. Eliza stare glazed, her jaw tense, her breathing wrong, Sydney staring back at a hostage video and calling it proof she's alive, because the human brain will grab at any thread, even if it's wrapped around a throat. In the task room the clip is played again and again until the officers can hear details the public will never notice, the faint hum beneath the voice, the way the room echoes like a bare box, the subtle rattle as if the camera is resting on metal, and right near the end, under the accent, the sound like distant water slapping against something hollow, rhythmic, not a river, not a sink, something larger, like a hull. They freeze frames. They scan pixels for reflections in her eyes, for shadows behind her, for a corner of wall that might match a place. Nothing gives. But metadata does. The file isn't new. It's been stripped, scrubbed, yet there's a timestamp residue the sender didn't manage to erase. The camera used is a cheap compact model, the same brand found in Darren's wrecked sedan, and the file structure suggests it was recorded, then copied again, dragged through devices like contraband until it lost its fingerprints. That tells the detectives something ugly and useful. Whoever is feeding them these things isn't doing it from the same place as holding her. He's moving the evidence through hands or machines. He's building distance. Distance means logistics. Logistics means people. They push into ports and marinas, because the drop came from the ocean off Wollongong, and you don't get an object to that water without a shoreline, or a boat. They subpoena CCTV from boat ramps, fuel docks, marinas from Botany down to Port Kembla. Hours of footage. Thousands of vehicles. The dead-eyed crawl of cars pulling trailers, men in caps, high-vis jackets, boats sliding into black water like knives. Analysts watch until their vision swims. They tag every dark sedan, every rental ute, every man who keeps his head down when he passes a camera. A single image pops like a flare on a screen at 2:48 a.m., 3 nights before the fishermen found the metal case. A white ute at a ramp near Port Kembla. The driver wears a hoodie. The passenger steps out for half a second, wrist turning, triangle tattoo visible, as he tightens a strap on a small dinghy. The camera catches the face in profile only briefly, but the jawline, the posture, the way he moves with impatient purpose, it's Darren Klein all over again, like a signature in body language. And if Darren is there, Silas is nearby. That's how this story breathes. They pull number plate recognition from surrounding roads. The ute's plates are stolen, of course. But stolen plates have a birthplace. The plates were reported taken from a Toyota in Campsie a week earlier. The theft report includes a witness statement, 2 men, one with a scar on his hand, one with a wrist tattoo. The witness said they were calm, methodical, like they'd done it 100 times. He remembered the scar because the man didn't hide it. He flexed his fingers as if showing off. Now the investigation has a map with movement on it. Campsie to Ashfield to Bargo to Port Kembla. Like a circuit. Like a supply route. The police start looking for nodes along that route, places where men like this can stop without being noticed. Storage units. Industrial sheds. Quiet rentals. Cabins. Boats. They find the first node by accident, which is how big cases always break, through a smaller crime that doesn't know it's connected. A patrol officer in an industrial area near Bankstown responds to a noise complaint at 1:30 a.m. A security alarm. A metal roller door half open. He walks in expecting teenagers. Instead he finds a storage facility office ransacked, drawers yanked out, CCTV monitor smashed. It's messy, rushed, the kind of destruction done by someone who doesn't care about theft, only about being seen. The officer calls it in. The address hits the task force's desk, and something in the sergeant's gut tightens, because the suburb, the timing, the pattern of blind the cameras feels like a rhyme. They descend on the storage facility before dawn, dozens of officers moving like a tide through rows of corrugated doors. They secure the office, pull what's left of the CCTV hard drive, and in the damaged files an image survives like a tooth in rubble. A man in a cap entering at midnight 2 nights earlier, walking straight to Unit 218 as if he owns it. The footage is grainy, but the right hand catches a light and there it is, white scar across the knuckle. Unit 218 is opened with bolt cutters. The metal door rolls up with a screech that feels too loud for what it reveals. Inside is a stripped room, with a single chair bolted to the concrete floor. A bucket. A cheap mattress rolled to one side. A coil of rope. A roll of duct tape. And on a shelf, a small stack of Polaroids face down like cards. An officer flips the top one and his face drains of blood. Eliza again. Closer this time. Her cheek bruised. Her lips split. Eyes staring past the camera, as if she's looking at a place she can't reach. There are more photos underneath, and beneath them, something worse. A plastic Ziploc bag containing a clump of hair, dark and thick, tied with an elastic band. Forensics later will confirm it's Eliza's. They find no body. They find no live person. They find absence dressed up in objects. But they also find something the predators didn't expect to be found, a notebook. Not Eliza's sketchbook. A small black ledger with pages filled in meticulous print. Dates. Times. Locations. Amounts of money. Lists of items, tape, film, fuel, burner. And names written in code, initials and symbols. On one page, a triangle is drawn beside the letter D. On another, a slash mark beside S. Darren. Silas. The ledger is a spine. It gives structure. It suggests planning beyond this case. It suggests this isn't the first time they've done something like this, or at least not the first time they've prepared to. And there's one entry that makes the room go cold in a new way, because it isn't about supplies. It's about a person. Th. Leverage. Tom Harker. The boyfriend's initials sit on the page like a target, and suddenly the name whispered in Eliza's recorded plea becomes more than a cry. It becomes a tactic. They are not just holding Eliza. They are manipulating her life, her relationships, turning love into a handle they can yank. Tom is placed under protection immediately, though he doesn't want it. He's furious, exhausted, hollowed out by weeks of suspicion. You think I did this, he snaps at a detective, voice breaking. And now you want to protect me. The detective doesn't argue. He just tells Tom to pack a bag. 2 officers escort him to a safe location. Tom's hands shake as he folds clothes. He keeps staring at his own phone, as if he expects it to ring and deliver the answer. It rings that night. No number. Withheld. Again. Like a ghost touching the line. An officer grabs it, answers, and hears breathing on the other end, slow, controlled. A man's voice follows, accented, soft as velvet dragged across a blade. You moved him, the voice says. The officer's stomach tightens. He signals to trace. The tech nods, fingers flying, but everyone knows a burner is a fish through fingers. The voice continues, calm, almost amused. You can't move her. A pause. Then something that makes the room tilt. A woman's breathing. Ragged. Close. Too close. Eliza's voice, faint, hoarse, as if it costs her blood to shape each word. Tom, please. The call ends. The trace fails. The line goes dead. Silence in the safe house becomes a physical thing, pressing against ribs. Tom stares at the phone like it's just bitten him. His face is gray, eyes wet, and he whispers, "That was her," as if saying it makes it real, as if saying it might keep her alive. For the first time, the task force has a live contact point. A predator spoke. A hostage breathed. The case isn't just artifacts and places anymore. It's a voice in the present. They attack the ledger like it's a map to buried treasure. The entries mention fuel purchases at certain times, and those times align with CCTV hits at service stations along the southwest corridor. They match the unusual cigarette brand to a tobacconist receipt scribbled into the notes. They cross-check a list of cash drop amounts with small ATM withdrawals in specific suburbs, the kind done by someone who doesn't trust banks. The patterns tighten, and a name emerges from the margins of the ledger, an initial cluster that repeats, MK. They look for MK in relation to Darren Klein. An old employment file from his private security job contains a reference contact, Mason Keene. Supervisor. Mentor. The task force pulls Mason's details. He's in his 40s. Ex-military. Runs a small security consultancy now, the kind that contracts to warehouses and events. He's clean on paper. No convictions. Respected. The kind of man who knows how to look respectable, because he's built a life around being trusted. And then a junior detective, sharp-eyed, pulls a detail from the port CCTV. The white ute at Port Kembla had a small sticker on its rear window, faded, circular, the same style of sticker that appeared in the earlier impound photo match. That sticker is a brand mark for a local security company, Mason Keene's company. It's used on fleet vehicles to identify them at industrial sites. It's supposed to say authorized. In the task room, nobody speaks for a moment, because the implications are radioactive. If Mason is tied to the vehicles, tied to the logistics, tied to leverage, then Darren and Silas weren't just wolves. They had access. They had cover. They had someone who could provide legitimate-looking gear, uniforms, high-vis jackets, the invisible cloak of authority. And then, because this case never stops twisting the knife, they find a second hit on Mason Keene that isn't about cars or stickers. It's about the CCTV tamper device. The little toggle switch unit recovered from Rafe's pocket was a cheap model, but it had one distinct mark, a tiny manufacturer's stamp used by a niche importer. Detectives chase the supply chain. They end up at a warehouse distributor on the outskirts of Sydney. The owner checks his logs and finds a bulk purchase made 2 months before Eliza vanished. Paid by company credit card. Mason Keene Security. They now have probable cause. They now have a doorway. Warrants are drawn up with shaking speed. Teams are assembled. The plan is simple: hit Mason's office at dawn, seize computers, seize ledgers, seize whatever he's hiding, and if Darren or Silas are connected, the net might finally close. But predators don't survive by sleeping through police plans. Somewhere, somehow, word leaks, or instinct warns, or Mason sees the tightening circle on his own radar. Because when officers breach Mason's office at 5:12 a.m., the place is too clean. Desks wiped. Filing cabinets empty. Computer towers missing. Only the smell remains, solvent, and the faint sharp tang of petrol like someone wiped down the air itself. They find one thing in the back room, a shredder bin full of paper confetti. Forensics bag it, because confetti can be rebuilt. Piece by piece. Patience as a weapon. Then an officer notices the floor near the back wall looks different. The concrete has been repainted in a rectangle. Fresh. Too fresh. He taps it. Hollow. They pry it up and reveal a trapdoor leading down into a subfloor cavity, the kind of hidden space old industrial buildings sometimes have. They climb down, torches cutting through blackness, and the beam hits metal. A shipping container door, bolted from the outside, the kind used to store equipment, to keep things secure. To keep things trapped. The officers exchange a look that says everything without words. They unbolt. They pull. The container door swings open with a groan of metal that feels like a warning. Inside, the air is stale and thick, and the first thing they see is a chair and restraints, and the second is a camera tripod, and the third is a pile of Polaroid film boxes scattered like empty shells. But there is no Eliza. No body. No living hostage. Only the smell, sweat, fear, disinfectant, and on the floor near the far corner, a single strand of hair stuck to tape, dark, long, human. They are always a step behind. Always arriving to the echo. On the container wall, scratched into the corrugated metal, are marks, tally marks, dozens of them, like someone counting days, and beneath them, carved with the same jagged desperation as in Bargo, 4 letters again. Lize. Only this time, beneath it, smaller, shakier, as if the hand was weaker, are 2 more letters, S-O. So. A word unfinished. Or the beginning of something else. Someone was writing. Someone was trying to leave a message that didn't get completed. As officers stand there breathing stale air, radios crackle with another call from the city. A boat has been found drifting, unmanned, near the mouth of the Georges River. Small dinghy. Fuel tank half empty. Inside is a plastic bag containing another note. Same block letters. Same hard pressure that dents paper. You're running out of time. No signature. No name. Just the kind of sentence that makes every officer in the task force feel the floor drop beneath them, because in that moment the case stops being about catching Darren and Silas and Mason, and becomes about the one thing that has been bleeding out between every clue and every chase, Eliza's time, the last sliver of it, somewhere in the dark, while Sydney watches hostage footage and calls it hope, and the men behind the curtain keep moving their pieces, daring the police to make one wrong step. And pay for it with a life they've already treated like a prop. Time becomes the loudest thing in the room, louder than radios, louder than sirens, louder than the frantic shuffling of paper, as if paper can stop someone from bleeding out somewhere they can't find, and when that note, "You're running out of time," lands on the table, it doesn't read like a threat anymore. It reads like a countdown, like someone standing over a clock with a hammer raised, waiting for the last tick. The task force moves like a swarm with a single mind, splitting and reforming, hunting for anything that connects Mason Keene's empty office, the hidden container, the dinghy on the Georges River, and the old Bargo cottage that still smells like damp rot and scratched names. No one sleeps. Coffee turns into water. Water turns into nausea. Faces hollow out under fluorescent lights, eyes bloodshot, tempers knife-sharp. Every officer feels the same sick thought pressing behind the ribs. If Eliza is still alive, she is being kept alive for a reason, and reasons like that have expiry dates. They go back to the dinghy first because it's fresh, because it's now, because water carries things away, but it also leaves traces. The boat is photographed, swabbed, scraped. A mud smear on the gunnel. A scuff on the outboard casing. A single glove fingertip stuck under a seat bracket, like it tore off in a hurry. Lab techs peel it out with tweezers and bag it, and when the DNA comes back it's male, not in the system, but the fibers on it are distinctive, high-vis synthetic, the kind used in workwear. Darren Klein's uniform ghost, again, hovering at the edge of every object. Divers sweep the river mouth, not because they expect to find a body floating politely in place, but because despair makes you search anyway. They find nothing but shopping trolleys and rusted bikes, and the ordinary trash of a city that never imagines it could be part of murder. Still, the river gives them one small gift. The dinghy's fuel tank contains traces of a specific additive sold by a limited number of suppliers in New South Wales, the kind used by commercial fleets, not weekend fishers. It's the sort of detail that feels boring until you realize boring is where predators hide. The supply chain leads back to a bulk order placed under Mason Keen Securities' account, again. Legitimate paperwork as camouflage. A clean logo masking dirty hands. Someone in the task room pins a new map. They mark every site Mason's company had contracts with in 2008, warehouses, industrial yards, event venues, a port facility, a transport depot. The pins spread like an infection. Then they overlay the known movements: Campsie plate theft, Ashfield Lane, Bargo Cottage, Bankstown Storage Unit, Port Kembla Ramp, George's River Dinghy. Lines appear, not neat, but suggestive. A corridor. A loop. A pattern of staging points that orbit a darker center. And then the shredder confetti begins to talk. Forensics rebuild the shredded documents the way you rebuild a broken bone, fragment by fragment, alignment by alignment, patience applied like pressure. In a lab, under bright lights, technicians lay out tiny strips of paper across tables until it looks like a snowstorm frozen mid-fall. Words begin to form. Numbers. A letterhead. A partial invoice. Then a name appears on one reconstructed page, and makes every detective in the task room snap upright: Kestrel Haulage. A transport company. Trucks. Freight. Containers. The kind of business that moves heavy things quietly, at odd hours, without raising eyebrows, because movement is the job. Kestrel Haulage has a depot not far from the Hume Corridor, positioned perfectly between Sydney and the southern routes Darren and Silas have been using. The name Kestrel also matches another puzzle piece: the faint sound in Eliza's hostage video, that hollow slap like water against a hull. Freight yards have water too, in drains, in docks, in the way rain collects in metal troughs. And freight yards have containers. Lots of them. The kind you can lock from the outside. The task force hits Kestrel Haulage that afternoon, not at dawn, not with a slow build, but with sudden force, because if the men behind this are watching, routine is a signal. Unmarked cars flood the perimeter. Uniforms fan out. A helicopter circles high, rotor thudding the air. The depot manager, a thick-necked man with grease under his nails, comes out angry until he sees the warrant and the number of officers, and his anger shrinks into nervous sweat. He insists they are legitimate. He insists they move furniture, appliances, nothing dodgy. He laughs too loudly at his own joke and no one laughs back. They search offices first. Computers. Filing cabinets. Dispatch logs. Driver rosters. A whiteboard with routes scribbled in marker. The more they look, the more ordinary it all seems, which is exactly what scares them, because the worst hiding places are the ones that look normal. Then a detective finds a sealed envelope behind a printer, tucked where a hand could slide it without being seen. Inside is a key. Just a key. No label. No explanation. And on the keyring, taped flat, is a strip of paper with 2 words written in block letters: Unit 12. Unit 12 isn't on the office floor. It's in the yard. The depot yard is a field of steel. Containers stacked 2 high, 3 high, painted in faded blues and reds, their corners stamped with numbers. The air smells like diesel and hot metal. A forklift idles nearby, driver watching with wide eyes. Officers move through the rows, boots crunching gravel, torches cutting into shadowed gaps between containers. They find container Unit 12 near the back, partly shielded by a stack of pallets. Its doors are padlocked. The padlock is new. The key fits. The lock clicks open with a sound so small it feels obscene, like a whisper in a cathedral. They swing the doors wide. For a moment, the darkness inside holds, refusing to reveal itself. Then torches pierce it. Beams sweep across corrugated walls. Across a chair. Across restraints. Across a camera tripod. Across a stained mattress. And there, in the far left corner, hunched under a thin blanket like a collapsed bird, is a figure. Eliza. She doesn't move at first. She's thinner than in the photos, cheeks sunken, hair matted. Her wrists are bruised. Her eyes blink slow as torches hit them, as if light is an unfamiliar language. An officer steps forward, voice shaking despite training. Eliza. Eliza, can you hear me? The figure flinches, then lifts her head a fraction, and her gaze locks onto the badge like it's a hallucination. Her mouth opens. No sound comes. Then a sound does come, a cracked whisper that feels like it's dragged through broken glass. Don't let him. Her body trembles. Her fingers clutch the blanket, as if it's the only thing keeping her tethered. A paramedic is already moving, kneeling, hands gentle, voice soft, wrapping her in warmth. Another officer scans the container, gun raised now, because anyone who keeps a person in a box like this doesn't leave them unguarded out of kindness. And there is no guard inside. But outside, the yard explodes with movement. A forklift engine revs hard. The driver, who had been watching, suddenly drops low in the seat as if receiving a signal. The machine lurches forward toward the container stack, forks raised. An officer shouts. Another raises his weapon. The forklift swerves, clipping a pallet, wood snapping, and then a white ute bursts from behind a row of containers, accelerating straight at the line of police cars near the gate, horns blaring, chaos blooming like fire. It's a distraction. A crude one. A desperate one. And desperation means someone is close. Someone yells, perimeter. Radios scream. Officers scramble, some staying with Eliza, some sprinting toward the commotion. The white ute slams a police vehicle's front bumper and jolts sideways, tires screeching, engine howling. The driver's window is down. A face flashes, stubble, cap, jaw clenched, and for a split second the scar on the right knuckle is visible as the driver's hand jerks the wheel. Silas Rowan. He doesn't stop. He rams again, trying to punch a hole through the blockade. An officer fires at the tires. A shot pops. The ute bucks, one tire blowing, but it keeps moving, metal grinding, sparks spitting from a rim. The forklift swings in behind it, forks aiming at the container doors like someone is trying to spear the evidence, trying to tear open the scene, trying to pull Eliza back into the dark. Officers shout. A sergeant screams commands. Protect the victim. Hold the gate. Take him down if you have to. The yard becomes a storm of noise and motion, and through it all Eliza sits on the floor of the container, wrapped in a thermal blanket, eyes wide, staring at the open doors like they're a doorway to another kind of terror. A detective stays with her, blocking her view, his own body a shield. He hears the ute engine die, hears footsteps pounding, hears someone yelling he's running. The case shifts again from rescue to hunt in the span of seconds, and the officers who sprint after the fleeing figure know what they're chasing, not a theory, not a name on a board, but a man who has been breathing down the neck of this city for months. Silas bolts between container rows, using steel walls as cover, moving with the ruthless efficiency of someone trained to disappear. He's fast. He's not panicking. He's executing. An officer rounds a corner and nearly collides with him, the two bodies colliding in a sudden, brutal tangle. Silas swings an elbow, connects with the officer's cheekbone, cracks like a stick. The officer stumbles. Silas runs again. A second officer tackles him from the side. They hit gravel hard, fists punching, knees scraping, breath grunting. Silas twists like a snake, reaches for something at his waistband. The officer sees the glint of metal and slams his forearm down, pinning the hand. Another officer arrives and drives a knee into Silas's ribs. Air leaves his lungs in a harsh bark. He spits. He bucks. He fights like a man who has fought before and expects to win. It takes 4 officers to finally clamp cuffs on him. Even then he smiles, lips thin, eyes cold. "You're late," he says, accent curling around the words like smoke. "You always come late." They drag him up, bleeding from the mouth, still smiling. As they march him through the yard, he turns his head slowly and looks toward the open container doors where Eliza is being carried out on a stretcher. His gaze lands on her like a hand. Eliza flinches under the blanket, eyes squeezing shut. A paramedic hisses, "Don't look," and shifts the stretcher angle, breaking the line of sight. Silas laughs, soft and ugly. "She's a good girl," he murmurs, not to anyone in particular. "She learned." The words hit the officers like a punch, because they are not words of a man who lost. They are words of a man who still believes he owns the board. They interrogate him immediately, not with theatrics, but with the cold machinery of procedure, rights read, recorder on, questions fired. Silas gives them nothing but smooth contempt. He claims he found the depot by chance. Claims he was checking containers for theft. Claims he never met Eliza. When they show him the photo from Darren's camera of the 2 men at Bargo, Silas tilts his head and says, "That could be anyone." When they mention Darren Klein, Silas smiles wider. "Darren," he repeats, as if tasting the name. "You still chasing him?" He leans back in the chair, cuffs clinking softly. "He's smart. He won't be here." And that's the new terror sliding under the door. Darren isn't in cuffs. Darren is still out there. Eliza is rushed to hospital under guard. Doctors work on dehydration, bruising, infection. They document injuries with clinical precision that feels obscene. She drifts in and out of consciousness, flinching whenever footsteps approach, eyes snapping to the door as if expecting a triangle tattoo to appear. When detectives try to speak with her, she struggles to form words, throat raw, mind fractured, but one sentence comes out in a hoarse rush, urgent as a siren. He said you'd never catch the other one." They ask who. Silas. Darren. Mason. Eliza's fingers clutch the sheet. Her eyes fill. "The one with the tattoo," she whispers. "He is not the worst. He's the hands. The other is the voice." The voice. The accent. The scarred knuckle. Silas is in custody, yet the voice she fears is still in the room of her memory, still in the corridors of this city, and the task force knows what that means. There is a third layer to this. Someone above Silas and Darren, or someone beside them. Someone who funds and directs. Someone who provides keys and containers and clean paper trails. Mason Keene. They bring Mason in that night. He arrives in a suit, calm, offended, playing the part of a respectable businessman who has been inconvenienced. He asks for a lawyer. He asks what this is about. He says he runs a legitimate company. He says anyone can buy fleet stickers. He says anyone can steal a key. He says anyone can forge an invoice. His voice is smooth, practiced. He looks at detectives as if they are overeager children. Then they tell him Eliza is alive. For the first time, Mason's mask shifts. Just slightly. A blink too slow. A swallow. A microflinch in the jaw. And in that tiny movement, the room senses it, the plan changed. The performance is off script. He recovers quickly, of course. He leans forward and says, "Thank God," like a man offering sympathy. But the detectives have been living in shadows for months. They can smell false relief the way they can smell petrol. Silas sits in a cell and smiles at the ceiling. Darren Klein is still somewhere in the dark. Eliza is alive but broken, and every breath she takes now is a piece of evidence and a fragile miracle. Outside the hospital, rain begins to fall, tapping the windows like fingernails, and Sydney holds its breath again, not in mystery this time, but in the sick knowledge that rescue is not the same as safety, that pulling someone out of a container is only the beginning of what the dark will demand in return.